Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the gold standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thank you for joining us. It is the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. And Ken, we have a big show.
We do.
A giant show. I don't know.
Yes.
Back from the land of the living, you know. We live in California, so our survival is, week to week. It really depends around these parts.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad inflation's over, you know. I went to the grocery store last week, and I was able to buy about, maybe about $100 worth of groceries, but they charged me $250.
I think I go to the same grocery store.
That's getting better, though. Yeah. So, I'm glad to see that this is all over and everything is good. So that's fantastic.
Well, at least that's what the mainstream news media wants you to believe in. Today, we are going to talk about the mainstream news media and what they are not telling you.
Yeah, what's the topic today?
What
the mainstream media isn't telling you about your money.
And it's a lot. Privacy, safety, value. We're going to talk about all of that today. But first, we always like to give you a little context. How did we get into the mess we are in? And it all goes back to 1971. And we always love to resurrect, if you will, President Richard Nixon.
Well, America needs to know the truth, Jen.
Of course.
You know, and Richard usually comes by and he usually talks about what he said in 1971 about, the dollar's going to be no longer convertible to gold. Mm-hmm. And that was the birth of fiat money.
Backed by nothing.
Yeah. In that same experiment, which was 52 years old, which was supposed to be temporary, that's the same experiment today that's on fumes. Mm-hmm. And it's basically, blowing up. And the only thing supporting it is more fake money. Right. So that's kind of where we're at today. But as a special treat, I was able to track down one of our leaders.
Really?
Yes, the minority leader of
Mitch?
the Senate, Mitch McConnell.
Come on, I haven't seen Mitch in months. He's been hiding out.
It was by phone.
Okay.
It was by phone. And simply, America needs to know what's going on with our leaders, what's going on with our money.
Sure.
What's going on with this $34 trillion of debt, over $1 trillion a year of interest, more fake money to support a fake market. And what are we going to do to pay this fake debt? Print more fake money?
Yeah.
I simply asked Mitch, what's with the safety, privacy, and the value of our money, considering all of this government spending and debt? And he had a fantastic response.
Tell me.
And I said, no, Mitch, really. If somebody is concerned about the value of their money and the safety and the privacy of their money at the bank or the stock market, what would you suggest as something to make them feel better, something that we can trust? We're supposed to be able to trust our money.
He said gold and precious metals.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you, Jen. I asked myself, could this be true? Is this really happening?
Yeah.
And yes, it is really happening. These
Your
are
talk
the people
with Mitch McConnell?
Well, we'll just say that it was off the record.
Off the record, of course.
Off the record. But that's where we're at today, and we're getting many calls from people, and I'm just amazed that when I turn on the television or when I read the newspaper, we don't get the truth.
No, and it's so evident, and we get a version of someone else's truth, right? The truth doesn't exist anymore. It's someone's opinion about what they think is the truth, and that's the problem with the mainstream news media. People don't know who to rely on to tell them what's really happening, and it's really bad when it comes to our money because that's something you need to know about to protect yourself.
I kind of take it as what agenda is being pushed.
That's it.
And what do they want to promote? So when I turn on the television, it's constantly, they talk about a few of the winning stocks and how great things are going and,
sure,
relax and stay the course and buy the dip. And it's the same thing over and over again. They really don't talk about the risks that are associated with what's going on and what are going to be the results and the ramifications of all this debt and all of this free money spending and
no
all
one
these
questions it.
No, it's just assume that it's going to be okay. What I'm going to tell you what if it's not?
Right.
And that's where kind of gold and silver comes into play. And that's what I would like to talk a little bit about today.
I think that's a great place to start. And let's talk first, I think, about the privacy aspect of our money and how it's under attack, because these are stories that the mainstream news media doesn't want you to know. You have to really dig around.
Yeah, and that's a doozy.
Yeah, this story in front of us. You want me to read the headline?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so this is from Zero Hedge, and the headline says, advocates outraged that feds asked banks to search customers' religious texts purchases. Now, think about what that means. That the federal government, is asking your bank to see what kind of messages, what you're writing about. Is it something about a religion? Is it something about MAGA? Something about a candidate?
Yeah, Trump. Is it
Trump,
What
right.
are you buying? They also said, and this came from the House Judiciary Committee, people that were shopping at like Dick's Sporting Goods or Cabela's, maybe buying ammunition or whatever.
Yeah.
They're being flagged. Now, these banking institutions are supposed to be the entities that we trust.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to be private. I mean, I thought that we were supposed to have financial privacy.
Of course.
But the fact of the matter is that the mainstream media would never tell us that we're under surveillance when it comes to our money.
And I think many people feel that, right? I mean, it's symbolic. Like, for instance, just to get away from our money for a second, but we're told that crime is getting better, but yet we feel that there is more crime today than there has been maybe in several decades. The same thing with our money. We're told that you have privacy, but then we start to wonder. We start to hear these little teeny tiny stories come out. We wonder if we really have privacy or if there is some kind of monitoring going on. And now we know, based on a few good journalists, and of course programs like this, that that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, is it going to get better or is it going to get worse? So, I mean, I would say that our financial privacy is going to become even less, especially if there's going to be a central bank digital currency or some sort of monitoring system where everything is going to be monitored, everything that we do. So
and then think about it. So they monitor it, but what if they decide to act? I mean, you look at those Canadian truck drivers who were standing against the government during COVID, and all of a sudden they couldn't access their money. That's frightening.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at what happened on January 6th and some of the people there that have spent a year, 2 years in jail waiting for trials. They are acting. They've closed people's bank accounts, especially, patriots. And
a friend of mine, Brandon Struck, who did the walkaway movement, had his entire bank account taken away. PayPal shut down. All of these things that he was using to keep his finances and to earn money, gone.
And then we saw some people that spoke out about the vaccines. And so the point is that how could you distance yourself a little bit from that? How could you have some financial privacy? How could you have purchasing power outside of the system, have control of it, but also have it, under your watch and be private about it so that everybody doesn't have to know every single little bit of your business? And that's where holding a tangible asset like gold and silver comes into play. So
because it's completely private.
Yeah, for the time being, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so while you can still move some money around and while you can still make some moves and while gold and silver are still a private asset, wouldn't it make a lot of sense to try and, diversify a little bit and keep some of your financial privacy? Because, folks, our privacy for our money, it's under attack. And I would have to say eventually, with the way that we're headed, we will have zero financial privacy in the not too distant future.
That is something to think about. And if you're worried about that, and I think many of us are, wondering just how far the overreach will go with the government and the banking system, if you want to get that private transaction, if you want to have currency that's yours in your home, something you can have access to, gold and precious metals are what you want to look at. We talk about it every week. The good folks at Midas Gold Group, they are America First Patriots. They are veteran owned, not a call center. They're there to talk you through and give you some options for your situation. Call them now, 855-322-4653. That's 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-GOLD. You can also text GOLD to 23, 24, 25. Midas will get right back to you. Or always MidasGoldGroup.com.
Yes. And we appreciate the opportunity to work with the community. You know, we appreciate the chance to try and protect people because we firmly believe, Jen, that over the next, well, who knows when, it could happen at any time, that the system either based on big numbers could collapse,
right,
you know, or on purpose. So the question is, can you remain financially intact during that process? And the ownership of enough gold and silver will allow you to come out of this basically financially intact so that whatever happens, you're not financially stuck, your money is not inaccessible, you're not financially ruined. And based on the track record of gold, like we've talked about many times, it's the only form of money that has survived throughout history in its original form.
And actually picked up value along the way as
a lot
well.
of value compared to our paper money.
855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD. In our final few moments in this segment, just want to circle back on that central bank digital currency because I think a lot of people hear about it and the potential for monitoring. Because when we are talking about privacy and what the mainstream news media is not going to tell you, they gloss this over, or it'll be sold to us like this central bank digital currency, this new digital currency is something that has to be done.
Right.
You're a good American. You have to take advantage of this system.
Right. It's for our benefit.
It's for your own good.
It's cheap. It doesn't
Correct.
cost anything. It's efficient. And, you know, the executive orders have already been passed. FedNow program started last June or July. It's in motion to get businesses accustomed to this, and then eventually it'll be customers. Who knows if it's going to be in 5 months or 5 years? Nobody knows. But wouldn't it make a lot of sense to not have all of your assets wrapped up in that type of system, which we all know is going to more than likely fail?
Yeah.
If not, why would you want to have all of your assets in that kind of a system anyway? So
That's right.
You got to make those moves now.
Diversify, help protect yourself. Do it with gold and silver. Midas Gold Group is available to talk to you anytime. 855-322-4653. Not a call center. People that are just like you, they can talk you through your options. 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-4653. You can always text the word gold to 232425. And of course, Midas will get right back to you. And go to that website.
Yes.
MidasGoldGroup.com. You'll get a lot of information, and there are even storefronts if you want to do your business in person, which I love. Thousand Oaks, California, Phoenix, Arizona. Go and see them, MidasGoldGroup.com. And Ken Russo, as we return, we are going to talk more about what the mainstream news media is hiding when it comes to your safety and the value of your money, what we can do to keep ourselves safe as we continue. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is a Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn back together again. Thank you all for joining us today. A big topic, very important. We know that the mainstream news media not always telling us the truth. I know, maybe some of you, a little shocker, but
You're kidding me.
I know. I don't want to disappoint you today,
Shut
Ken.
the front door.
I know. But the mainstream news media does tell us a little lie. They sometimes spin things. They make us think. They do gaslighting. That was one of the words of the year, right? They tell us
Gaslighting. I like that one.
everything is okay when we know everything's not really
You know
okay.
what other word I like?
Tell me.
Earmark.
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 You know what? I don't like that word, actually.
Yeah.
I don't. They were fighting. I was watching in California. We have an open Senate seat, and they were fighting about whether or not they would be fighting for earmarks in California. And every single one of the candidates, Republican, Democrat, they didn't care. Bring them on. All right.
Okay.
So here we go. Let's talk about the safety of our money and what the mainstream news media doesn't want us to know.
God, no. Well, I don't know if it's to anybody's surprise, but there was a few banks that failed last year, and some
You
of the
would
biggest.
be surprised.
Well, I think people have forgotten, and I don't mean to be sarcastic, Ken, but these banks are drowning in losses. I think they said, let me look at my cheat sheet here. $658 billion of unrealized losses for some of the banks. There were 10,000 branches in 2008, and now there's 4,600 branches. They tell everybody that our money's safe because of FDIC insurance, right?
I believe that till I met you.
Well, and rightfully so. It's pretty convincing what they say. But when you look at the real numbers, the FDIC, which is supposed to cover you up to $250,000 per account, that's why Jen has about 10 to 20 different bank accounts.
I diversify.
Okay. But the FDIC, picture this, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
They have the responsibility of insuring over $12 trillion in deposits, but they have $128 billion in actual assets.
Hold on a second. 12 trillion
versus
100 billion?
128 billion.
12 trillion. I don't know. You know what? I'm not a mathematician here, but that doesn't seem like quite enough.
Now, you're a reasonable person.
Yeah.
If a lot of people showed up at the same time for their money, or a lot of people tried to pull all of their money out of retirement accounts at the same time, there's not enough.
Think natural disaster, right? Think something where people want to put a draw on.
I'm afraid to think what could happen, but you have to protect yourself from the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fractional reserve system, which means that whatever money we put at the banks, they only keep a fraction of it.
Right.
You see how that's a play on words? That wouldn't be a good one for Kamala.
No.
It's a fractional banking system because the bank only keeps a fraction of your money.
Did you know she taught me something?
Well, what's that?
Community banks are banks in the community.
Well, that's why she's vice president.
Mind
She's
blown.
risen to such high, a level. But the point is the safety of our money at the banks is not great. The financial conditions of the banks are not great.
Yeah.
You could make it a lot better, the safety of your money, by holding on to some of it, keeping it safe yourself, or possibly diversifying an IRA or an old 401k. You don't have to be invested totally in the banking system, totally in paper assets in the stock market, the bond market. You could have it in a tangible asset like gold and silver. It'll at least be there when you need it. And based on its track record, Jen, it will always have value.
And, just to go back to something you've taught me, Ken, 6 bank collapses in the past year. And you said that there's a number of banks that are on the watch list for collapse. And then what's the answer? Another government bailout. I mean, there's no winning solution here, right?
Yeah, and what's crazy, too, is these banks that failed, that none of those were on the watch list, but there was a rumor that they had bad investments. So everybody who has a phone, everybody who wants to go on the internet and send their money out to another financial institution, and then that bank is insolvent. That could happen to any insurance company, any IRA company, any paper company, any bank, any credit union. So the point of the matter is it's a fractional system. Our money may not be there when we need it, or it may not be accessible. It would be crazy to have all of your assets wrapped up in a paper banking fractional system.
And gold gets you out of that system, and it brings it to you so that you don't have to rely on those banks to deliver your money to you. It's something real and tangible.
And the first bail-in that they do, where they actually take people's money, everybody's going to try to go to the bank and do the same thing, and they're not going to be able to take their money out. It's going to be a bad situation. So that's where we're at.
855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653 for Midas Gold Group. Give them a call if you are concerned about the safety. We've talked about the privacy of your money. 855-322-GOLD or MidasGoldGroup.com. Let's talk about value.
Yeah, and
because
this isn't anything that we can't make it up.
Right.
These are facts. And we just talked about our grocery bill.
Oh.
And
Yes,
you can talk
we
about anything, gas, utilities. We talked about the cost of Harvard back in the 70s, which was, I think, like $2,800 per year. Now
Forget
it's
it.
$70. We talked about the cost of a new car, which was $3,800 back in the 70s, right? Our dollar is losing tremendous buying power. They can fake it. They can lie about it.
Gaslighting.
Inflation is the devaluation of our currency. And the more money that they create out of thin air, fake money, and the more debt that they pile on, which is also created out of thin air, ultimately, our dollar is going to lose purchasing power because they have to create more and more inflation to keep the system going. And what do I mean by that? They have to print more money to even pay the interest on the already existed printed money.
So the fake money is paying for the fake money.
Yeah, so we're going to make more fake money to pay for the old fake money to try in the future to create more fake money. Yeah, so
winning system.
That has to matter at some point. $1 from 1999 is worth 55 cents. $1 from 1971 is worth 15 cents. $1 from 1933 is worth 3 cents.
Wow.
What's going to happen to the buying power of your money 10 years from now if and when they print 10 to hundreds of trillions more and take out how many more trillions in debt? What's going to happen to our buying power in the next 5 or 10 years? It's going to get a lot worse. So the point being is if you have a pile of assets and it's denominated in dollars, what is the buying power going to be in that paper money over the next 5 or 10 years versus gold? Now, when gold reflects all of this money that's been printed, all of the debt that's out there, it will reflect a much higher price in the gold market. It did that back in the 80s. It did that back during the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008. It hasn't done it yet. It's like holding a beach ball underwater. Eventually, it's going to pop out and go a lot higher. It's not the reason why people should buy it. They should buy it for control. They should own gold for distancing themselves from the problems that are coming. But it will reflect a much higher price soon. It will keep your purchasing power versus the dollar, which has a tremendous track record all the way back to the 1930s of consistently over time losing buying power, losing value, and right now we're reaching a point where that is getting worse than ever.
Yeah.
The risk of our dollar right now is as bad as it's ever been. That's why a lot of these other countries, Jen, are not buying our dollars. They're not buying our debt. They're doing business in their own local currencies. They can see what's going on. They can see our deficits. They can see our debt.
And they're searching out gold too, those other countries, right?
They're searching something that is going to hold value.
Yeah.
They're searching something that they can control and rely on because they don't trust our government and they don't trust our money anymore. So why on earth is the mainstream media not telling every single American right now that their savings, that their IRAs, that their retirement accounts, that the purchasing power of their dollar is dwindling and their money in so many ways is under attack? Why are they not saying that?
Because they don't want to cause panic and because they're working for the government and the big banks that run them.
And
that is always going to be what you have to do. Who are signing the checks are those people who are not telling you these things. And I do want to point out that the value of gold has held its value. It's grown significantly over time. And think about it if you're getting ready to retire and you think, I have this much money, it's what I'm going to need to live on. But what about in 10 years when that money is no longer serving you? And so there's a warning sign here when you are thinking about what your future looks like. Is that dollar that you work so hard for going to still be worth what it is now in 10 to 15 years? And the answer is no.
Yeah, and Ben, that's based on the government's track record. It's based on the central bankers and the politicians that have thoroughly abused the ability to print money. Everything is debt. They're taking on more and more debt, spending more and more money. It's a vicious cycle. It's feeding on itself. It's a whole system that's addicted to debt. But you still have an opportunity to do something about it. You don't have to go down with the ship if and when it goes down. And the worst case scenario is you'll have gold and you'll have silver in your possession, and in my opinion, that's not going to be the problem. The problem is going to be, do you have too much money connected to a sick and dying system with a dying dollar?
Protect yourself. Call Midas Gold Group right now. Don't wait another week. 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-4653. Always MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.